If you're in property management and you're not at the MX Summit, what are you doing? Join us September 16th through 18th in Rapid City, South Dakota. The Maintenance Summit is the only conference laser-focused on property maintenance operations, where the industry's sharpest minds come to level up. Think cutting-edge strategies, priceless insights, all-inclusive meals, killer entertainment, and the can't-miss MX Showdio, a Western experience you'll be talking about all year. Oh, and the Turnover podcast. They're going live from the main stage. Seats are limited. Don't miss the event that sets the standard. mxsummit.co.
Welcome to Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. My name is Chris Caramano. As a 15-plus year veteran in the apartment industry, I have stories to tell, a desire to hear and tell other stories. As a multiple committee member for NAA, a CAMT advisory board member and a CAMT holder, and a national presenter and educator, I have met and worked with so many great people in our industry at all different levels. This is not going to be a how-to podcast. This is going to be a how-did podcast. We are going to explore the how-did tales in multifamily maintenance. How did we do it? How did we learn from it? How did we grow? How did we decide not to do it again? Join me as we go beyond the work.
Welcome all to another episode of Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. I have a extremely special guest today, somebody that I had the honor of meeting for the first time at Apartmentalize very recently. And we have some exciting stuff that I wanted to talk to this fine gentleman about. So without further ado, let me introduce Ray Hespen from Property Meld. Ray, thank you for joining me and the audience today for Beyond the Work. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business and Property Meld.
I have, Chris, thank you so much for having me on the show, by the way. Super excited to be on it. I probably have one of the most interesting / boring backgrounds of how I got into this business. So I tell people I'm technically a degreed mining engineer. So that was what I went to college for.
Okay.
Yes. And not only that, I graduated with a 2.9 as my joke. So it wasn't even a good one at that. And, but long story short, I had a background in construction materials. You know, I graduated college around 2009, and if anybody remembers, it was a really challenging time. And so I kind of got slated as being one of the people that would jump into plants that weren't operating well and figuring out what could be automated, systematized, and include everything from heavy equipment, machinery, the actual plant itself. So I got an amazing breadth of knowledge. In my last job, I helped do a turnaround of a plant in Baltimore, Maryland, and we figured out how to get it surviving and so on. And so anyways, one day, my buddy, my co-founder, called me one day and he says, "Man, like you've moved around a lot, Ray, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." And he's like, "Has maintenance ever been like an enjoyable experience?" And I'm like, I was am handy enough that I was like, I just would fix it. It's just easier. And I would just do it myself and not say anything. And he's like, "Yeah, but I've had like 3 or 4 in like the first, 60 days of his lease." And anyway, so we kind of explored it and we're like, oh my goodness, such an opportunity. So we started Property Meld with how do we make the renter experience great? We knew it was terrible for property managers, vendors, technicians. And so started there, and now it's grown to the largest property maintenance operations platform in the country. So pretty exciting.
So that's a pretty big leap, from a mining degree to property maintenance.
I actually, by the way, thought so too at the time, Chris. But what's so crazy is like in really well-established industries where they've been doing stuff for like 100 years, like there's a lot that you go, why couldn't we do that over here? And it's like this, when you get an intimate knowledge of both, you realize there's more parallels than not. So preventative maintenance is a big deal. Finding different ways to anticipate repair, replace decisions. How do you logistically run different things and components? And how can you find ways to automate certain things that human beings don't have to like spend obnoxious time doing hard things? And there was a lot of it that was actually similar. I know that today, Chris. I did not know that at the time. I thought I was some weird guy who had a threshold for pain, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that. I have the privilege of working with somebody who came from a manufacturing background like yourself, that he started his life and his career as on an assembly line. right? And then from there, he got into the property maintenance and, taking care of the machinery. So yeah, I've had lots of conversations with him about that over the last few years. And I think it's something that we kind of take for granted, is that there are other industries out there that are doing what we're doing just a little bit differently, but there's a lot of good opportunities for lessons learned. So Ray, I talked to a lot of people in multifamily housing, but to hear that somebody that came over from a manufacturing or commercial background is a really interesting thing. So what does Property Meld do? I mean, let's go back. What was the original elevator pitch for Property Meld? Let's go back. You're a founder.
Oh, my goodness, man.
What was the original pitch? And then I want to hear what the pitch is today. So make sure that they're different, because I know they're different.
Yeah. So I'll generally tell you the pitch, and I'll tell you, I'm going to actually tell you our pitch was actually a question. Would you consider maintenance the best part of your job or the worst? When you talk to a property manager, and it's the hardest, people don't. And then you could ask subsequent questions. Well, how are you appropriately getting the repairs, troubleshooting? How are you getting things scheduled? How are you following up? How are you making sure the resident's happy? How are you getting the billing information? And every one of those questions was just a dagger, because it's so hard and we do not have the resources to effectively do it in the way that we want to. So that was the first pitch. It was all about, how do you do one repair correctly? And I didn't feel like I could. Now with property maintenance operations, it's not just about fulfillment anymore and making sure you're doing all those jobs well. It's making sure that you got the financial capture. It's making sure you got your procurement. It's making sure you got your asset management. Well, how should we do a rehab, turnover, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of jobs that impact a lot of them. And you know this, Chris, you've been in the maintenance business. A lot of people treat turnovers and R&M differently, and leasing differently. And it's but what if I told you actually the turnover can increase the likelihood of lease churn by 90% in the first 90 days? Leasing should care about turnovers, and R&M is a response to what's the work out. And so it's, you realize—
And then you add preventative maintenance, which is a whole nother layer, which decreases turn time and increases resident satisfaction. I mean,
100%.
I love the last 5 years because maintenance has become such a huge focus. So we're going to talk about that. It really has been, in the AC, the after COVID times, as I like to say, is everyone's oh, maintenance is really important, but it's things that maintenance professionals like myself and my peers have been saying for years, but there's been a real renewed focus. I want to talk to you. Go ahead, Ray.
I even wanted to say something that was even I like AC, by the way. I'll tell you, I think maintenance was a focus from a retention standpoint before. Weird rah-rah celebrating employees. They're oh, maintenance, it's just and I'm it's words. And it's are you trying to pipe me up for whatever? Now, I think the difference between now and AC, as you call it, which I really like, is can you please help me figure out how to get my renewals up? And can you please figure out how to get me control my costs? And those are different hypings that I think one of them was almost what do you call that when somebody just says it, that is kind of stop, patronizing. Yeah.
Patronizing.
Now it's no, earnestly, until rents go up on a lease churn, you're kind of the most important field. And so anyways, I wanted to throw that note in one of my observations.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that I've learned in my research of Property Meld, and I want you to talk a little bit more about it and what you are doing, is that you're not just collecting data on maintenance and invoicing. You're also collecting some resident and renewal data. I think it seems a little bit like what we were just kind of talking about. Talk to me a little bit about that, and what impact has that had on your business, or just how you're viewing the industry right now? Because it's a huge part.
I'll start by saying what Property Meld does, because analytics is a byproduct of great maintenance process. And so our platform is a great resident experience. And a lot of people have had great experiences scheduling things, getting updates of what's happening. It's a world-class experience on getting maintenance done, not just for the technicians and the vendor, but also the residents, and giving the property management peace of mind things are moving along and the system that's moving it. So everything from intake and triage, scheduling, logistics, following up, our platform automates a lot of that. But one of the really, really cool byproducts that we do that is vastly different is we took an approach of automation that like we know when a human being has to go in and enter numbers into something, good luck. Like it's not going to happen. One, we want people to take care of the resident. Their job is not data entry. And so we built it automated and enough in a way that captured all this. One of the byproducts that we had was we can see really weird things that I don't think the industry has ever seen before. And so like we were the first ones to, everyone knew maintenance is important, Chris. Like everyone's like, yeah, right. Like somebody did a study and like that's important. And we know how painful it is if we are not staffed with enough techs or somebody overseeing or somebody helping or enough vendors. But we were the first to come out and give SLAs that, by the way, do you know you have 3 days to fix HVAC issues, 4.5 days to fix plumbing, 5 days in electrical? And like, huh? Yeah, statistically, to even bother getting a positive experience, they're not the same. And then we would start coming to, we could actually start telling even more detailed sort of stuff. So like, and I'll jump into kind of the resident retention thing where we're actually able to start seeing what are the small behaviors or what types of repairs that there's really increasing risk of changing the likelihood of them to renew the lease. Because, right, what was your data before? Well, we do exit surveys. But what if I was to tell you I could know within 30 days and then I could see the subsequent behavior of how that changed afterwards? And so we're finding very, very strange things. Like I can tell you, Chris, like for example, you know, I can tell you which repairs have certain time to assign and get things out and communicate to a resident that if you don't do it in a certain period of time, it drastically increases their likelihood of churning the lease after the first year.
Amazing.
And it's so granular now. And it's, again, a byproduct of capturing so much information about what's happening with single repair that we're discovering things, including why is maintenance less of a service business and should be a strategy for a lot of property maintenance or property management firms.
Another day, I would love to go through and sift through those reports with you because, you know, anecdotally, I think a lot of people are like, oh, if a resident waits too long for their air conditioning to get fixed, they're less likely to renew. Anecdotally, I have found that residents are more upset by the easy things not being done quickly. And most people would be understanding if you have to wait a few days for an HVAC part or even a general appliance part, right? I can go a day without my stove working, but the smoke detector battery that's beeping or the dripping faucet that, you know, to a resident appears very easy to repair. And in some cases, it may be very easy to repair. That stuff that takes too long is like, well, if they can't do what I think is the simple stuff, and I'm going to go somewhere that they can do the simple stuff.
You know, the one of the things that I think is, just like you said, I was going to kind of jump in here. The things around that, like that kind of proves exactly what you're talking about is like water systems. I'm looking at some of this here. The speed of repair is actually seemingly negligible or the same. But what matters is how fast I got it to somebody and communicated to the resident. What matters is their experience and how satisfied they were with the repair. And so that's the sort of stuff that I think you're spot on anecdotally, but there are certain key parts of it that are really important. And I think there's these interesting findings that should give guidance, right, of how we should treat things. So just like I was talking about the things, first in, first out is not the same. I even think in multifamily, we have weird SLAs sometimes. We'll be like, I want percentage of my repair done within 24 hours and be like, why? Why are we doing that? When there's certain of them that, yes, 24 hours, other ones can wait, like you said, 72 hours, as long as these things are met. And it's just really changing this from being, and I think one of the big challenges is it's changing it from being this thing where it's like, as long as I'm not getting negative calls or negative reviews, that's good, to being our maintenance operation needs to perform to a certain thing that we know is going to statistically improve the likelihood of renewals going up, occupancy going up, and subsequently the value of that asset. And I want them to look in a certain way. And so it is a big shift.
So maintenance is really important. And I have feelings, and I've expressed them to you about two different things. So we're going to cover one, and then we're going to cover another one. The first one is I'm prop tech when it comes to maintenance. I absolutely love it. makes my life easier, makes my team's life easier. But I said something to you when we were at Apartmentalize that you were like, full stop. I felt like nobody had ever said that to you out loud before. And I'm going to say it again.
I love it. I'm so excited. I'm trying to remember. I remember
No,
you
you're
did say
going to
something.
remember this. And it is not a knock on, it's not a knock on you, your organization. But I said that maintenance prop tech is not for maintenance. And you went like full stop. And I love the flood of technology that is coming into the space. I love it, how it is making our on-site team's life easier, but it is not for the maintenance technician. It is not for the maintenance supervisors. It's not for the people doing the work. Before I tell you why, you tell me why I'm wrong or maybe why I'm right, because you looked at me like that no maintenance person had ever said that to you before.
Well, I mean, we have a great product, so they don't say that to us, but I get it. And I think there's an element of what you're saying is true. And so we're talking the AC after COVID thing. Yeah. And really there was this ZERP era where it was just, and zero interest rate period where people like shoving money into technology. And if you had a half-brained idea on a napkin that you are getting funded and you're going to get this thing out to the market and you're going to spend bajillions of dollars on sales and marketing, getting people familiar with it. And a lot of it isn't that great. Like it just isn't. And so I think one of the things that we've learned after 10 years of doing maintenance, and I'm going to give you a data point. We have around 80,000 vendors on our platform. I will tell you, the trades are some of the most defensible occupations and careers that are going to exist in the next 10 to 20 years. Getting somebody who doesn't need to use it and they actually can call the shots, getting them to use it, we've realized is actually critical if you want the actual process to work. So for us, we named it Property Meld because the term meld actually means to combine. And so a lot of the times in technology, it's like the sequence of events, but maintenance is not. Maintenance is like, I need you two people to communicate at this particular point. I need you two people. I need these three people to communicate at the same time. So we had to combine them. It will not, at least our platform will not work if you don't get the buy-in on the vendors and the technicians. It just won't. And so I would generally agree, because I've seen a lot of other systems out there. It is really not. They don't build it for that. And a lot of the things that we have to defend as a company is when engineers who've never been in the shoes of or set in the thing is how do you get them to see that you cannot make that button like would be handy for you as an engineer sitting on a desk with a 40-inch screen. These are different animals. So I would generally agree, by the way, Chris. I think actually, by the way, I think now that I remember, I think the thing that I thought I remember you saying is technology cannot build trust. I thought that was it, but no, that wasn't it. Okay.
I've said that too.
Okay.
We'll talk about AI on another day. But yeah, I've always felt that, with the influx of the prop tech and the maintenance space, there's a lot out there. I was an early adopter. I'm not afraid to say it. I went DVD. I didn't go Blu-ray. Now you have streaming, right? But back in the day when you had the, HD DVD, the maroon versus the blue war, right? And I have countless DVDs that are absolutely useless to me now, right? But it's the same thing with the prop tech, right? Is that there's a lot in the, organization like yours has been around 10 years. You're not going anywhere, but there's a lot of other players that are new to the market or just entering, and the best are going to rise to the top. They're going to win. They're going to be the Apples. They won't be they'll be the iPhones and iPods, not the Zune. Again, technology wasn't there. Now I'm going to get a cease and desist letter from
Laserdisc.
Microsoft.
I'll get one too.
That's fine.
Laserdisc.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Laserdisc.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't want to date me, but yeah.
That's all right. So, one of the other things that I really feel that is a player in the realm of technology that we all deal with on a regular basis. We talked about the on-site maintenance technicians. We talked about the property managers. To some degree, you talked about owners, but there's a whole nother piece, right? There's asset management, there's investors. How do you explain to them how maintenance is important? Because for me, I'm looking for tips now, personally.
Okay.
Right?
Man. Well,
I want to know, how do you tell the bean counters, if you will, that maintenance is important. And it's more than just, I spend money. That's what I do. My job is to spend money all day long. It's just a matter of severity.
So Chris, I'll tell you the number one thing I've learned, and I work with bean counters, is that if you don't put it in an Excel document, it doesn't count. So
I have I have 4 Excel documents open on my computer right now.
So this is really important, by the way, because I think this is what we're getting ready to release. And one of the things that we're super excited to go in more depth on in the MX Summit. There has not been a direct correlation between maintenance and the returns on that property and thus the value of the property, right? People like yourself, Chris, other professionals have been around the thing, be like, I know, I'm in there, I'm seeing, and then when I go and see that resident doesn't renew, I could have told you that, right? But there's nothing, you can't quantify that qualitative knowledge all the way up. And so one of the biggest things that's been a major missing block is that missing link between that experience that you know to be true and anecdotally know to be true, all the way to a statistical likelihood for a bean count. And that's one of the biggest things of what we're most excited about of what releasing this is, because I can tell you what maintenance can move is we're expecting 6 to 8 points on renewals. Like if people were to really run on this, but it runs anywhere up to 13 points. You can alter the likelihood of renew a lease if you operate a certain thing or avoid operating in other ways. And so the whole thing is the moment that goes out in combination with how my operation is performing, the bean counters quit asking Chris, well, why would you spend that much on toilet handles? Can't we buy like 20 toilet handles and then we're going to get a 10% discount? And that's how we're going to make our P&L and that's how we're going to increase value property. The moment that goes out, there's going to be some good and some bad. The good is the resourcing towards maintenance will get very serious. The bad thing will be the visibility and the caring of how maintenance is executed is also going to be really important. And so that first thing of correlating to where this is actually a math game, if you deliver this level of SLA, your likelihood of renewals going up, occupancy going up, your NOI going up, and thus the value of that asset going up, starts to go, Chris, you are now the most important person here. All I need you to do, though, is I need you to tell me how you're performing on these key metrics. And that is another challenge all on its own, because as you know, hiring great techs is hard, making sure you're maintaining vendor relationships. But at least as we do that, it's going to force that next wave of, okay, we know it's important. Now we need to operate like this. And now it's going to kick off a whole set of other changes. And one of the things I was talking with Paul about is like, do you know that mathematically, even if you move renewal rates 4 points, and hopefully technicians aren't, I'm going to get so much trouble for this. You could pay a technician an extra $120,000 a year. All technicians, $120,000 a year. If they could actually move at least 4 points, you could pay them an additional $120,000 a year. That's how big a deal this is financially. So I'm kind of alluding to what we have in the sequence, but I'm a firm believer those are the steps.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of paying people more money. So you're not going to get any arguments on that. And yeah, I've seen the benefits of it. But going back and looking at SLAs or service level agreements, those are the guide rails to get you to the metrics that our teams need to hit when it comes to resident renewals, resident satisfaction scores. Just like a guide rail, you're not always going to be able to hit it perfectly, right? But it's a touchstone. It's a place to come back to when you are fully staffed or when you do have the materials. You might stray, you might take an extra day to do work orders for a couple of weeks, couple months, but the goal is to get into that service level agreement. It is not, I've worked with too many people in my career that are like, well, if the work order isn't completed in 48 hours, we failed. It's like, no, look at the bigger picture. Let's look at it over instead of an individual work order, let's look at over a week or a month or a quarter. And are we hitting our targets? Because that's what moves the needle. It's not the individual, it's the amalgamation of those little touch points.
And I think the other thing that's a benefit too, Chris, in this. So anyways, back to the whole thing, getting the bean counters to care is actually showing them math that is not, made up, and it's based on this report that we did is based on over 110,000 leases. It's first year leases. So it's like not a joke of a data set. But the second thing is right now, inherently maintenance. And that's one of the big things we talk about MX Summit is we have to get out of this. It's a very negative job. One of the reasons it's high turnover is because you can't win. There's actually no winning. It's all losing. And it's just the degree to losing. The degree of angry of calls. A good day is no phone call day. That's a good day. And that's not real, and nor is it controllable. So what you're talking about, Chris, and I think people putting those SLAs in the past, like, was the best attempt at saying maintenance is important enough. We at least need to be fast, right? But the whole thing is let's make it winnable. When you have maintenance professionals coming in and they've got one resident who's torqued off and 9 that are happy, nobody's talking about it. They're like, well, then one wrote the thing online. What if you walked in and you were going through your metrics of time to resolution on key repairs? So what's been your time to schedule, your lead time? What has been, how's our 90-day turnover impacting? What's our average speed of repair in general across the board? What's our SAT been the last whatever? And now we have goals and metrics that one is not going to mess it up. And if we do mess up that one, we overperform in another and the number comes back. This is what makes it winnable to when maintenance professionals go home at night. They can feel like, hey, listen, I had some bad things happen at work, but we're actually trending really well and we're hitting our goals as a team. And that's a big transition that I think is going to be really important. One, to deliver on the bean counters, narrative on what they need it to look like. But two, I think it'll also help us bridge some of the retention components, development components that we can have with, our maintenance professionals. And that way it's they can go home feeling like they're winning, despite the fact that they're in maintenance.
So, wow, I want to talk to you more and more about this topic, but you have an opportunity for people to talk to each other about this. And
Man.
I love the tagline. You've mentioned it a couple times. You are doing your 5th maintenance summit, Taming the Mayhem, in Rapid City, South Dakota, in September. Quickly, tell me, why are you doing this?
So great question, Chris. One of the things that's been really successful, and as we went on, and I talked about the iterations of Property Meld early on, let's make maintenance less painful and better experience. But now as we go in, we understand how it impacts NOI, not from I know it, it's quantifiably we know it. We've realized that the things that even we're talking about, what work you're doing, education is so important to getting all people aligned on what we should look like and operate on to deliver the best returns. And so we've been as we've been getting this data, we kick it out in a variety of forms. We're showing operations. We're coming up with best practices with our operating partners. And so this is a way for us to bring all those people together. And we realize the power of community when it comes to information exchange. And so we started it again 5 years ago, and we did it once, and it was kind of a little bit of a trial, but it was so powerful, the amount of people saying, we want to come back. Because it's around topics. It's not around software. It's about best practices, things that I can walk away with and know that there's going to be less fires tomorrow than there is today. And if I do encompass some of those challenges, I've made 3 friends that can help me solve that problem in ways that they have. And so we ended up having, I think it was 92 or 95% of people came back the next year. And then our retention has been relatively similar to where we have doubled every year. We had 400 people last year. The marketing team would kill me if they said 800, but I'm like, we could double again. And they're like, dude, can you please, we're dying. This is huge to put on. But I think I think based on what we're trending, I would not be surprised that we're somewhere around 600 people.
Yeah, I love that these maintenance summits are becoming more and more commonplace. I think it's really important that we're seeing events specifically geared towards maintenance. I know local associations are doing it at the local and state level. We know that organizations like yourself are really focusing on the maintenance professionals, and you have some amazing guest speakers and keynotes. I'm burying the lead, but tell me some of the big names that you're excited to have either back or for the first time.
Yeah, so we've got Sharon Lecter, who is a co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad's keynoting it. We have David Meltzer, who's making a return visit. If everybody knows the movie Jerry Maguire, it's based off of him, and he's a brilliant human. He came last year and gave a great speech. But from an industry perspective, we've got a few names that are really great. Don Beveridge is, as you all know, I think he's got a great bend on intelligence, and he's talking about AI and automation. And I think a way that is, I think we've all kind of been burned and go AI overload, but I think he's added some practicality and logistics to what we're seeing in operations in reality. We got Brad Johnson, who's for the CEO of Profit Coach, really talking about margins, finance, internal maintenance, finance, and some of the things that he's doing there. And then we've, of course, Chris, got the Turnover podcast coming up.
Who's that? Tell me more about that.
And what I think is really cool, Chris, about you guys all coming in there, I believe you're going to do a live podcaster segment actually up on stage, which is from what I've heard is unscripted and is been committed to be not raunchy, but a little, could be off cuff. I don't know.
It is. So yeah, I was very, very honored to be reached out to along with my co-hosts, Paul Rhodes and Mark Sharp. We will be doing a live podcast of the turnover at this event. And I never get to see those guys live. And when we do, most of the time we can't talk like we talk in public, but we will be, I promise you and your marketers and your entire team will be on our almost best behavior. But yeah, we're going to be there. We're going to be there for the entire event, but really what we're looking forward to is getting on stage. And one of the big things about the turnover is we don't know the questions that we're going to ask each other. So we are going to come up each with a question for the other two. Ray, I am throwing down the gauntlet. You have a couple of months between now and the day that we're going to get on stage. And we are going to ask we're going to ask Ray, what is your question for the three of us at the turnover? And we might take some audience questions, but we really focus on anything and everything that affects our industry, whether it's maintenance related or operations related. And thank you so much to your team for inviting us and the team at Multifamily Media Network, because we're pretty pumped about it. We just announced it just the last week or two ago, and my phone has not stopped ringing and buzzing and email messages. Between the boys and me.
It's going to be so much fun. And I'm excited you're coming to Rapid City. And Chris, you and I were kind of joking on that. Rapid City, by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's Boulder before Boulder was Boulder is what I tell people. It's okay. Boulder Light. It's a gorgeous place. It's the gateway to the Black Hills, which is one of the most incredible places. And of course, most people have heard of Mount Rushmore. It's 30 minutes from here, but the Black Hills is incredible. And I've lived all across the country. I targeted moving to here. It's such an incredible place. The venue is awesome. We have the hotel and the venue right next to each other, and it is brand new, and it is truly fantastic. But it is a phenomenal destination. And I think one of the reasons that we've had such great retention, I'd love to say it was all because people love maintenance so much. It's a cool place to go, and then our team does not disappoint on some of the activities and things that we do. But it'll be a great time to have you out here.
Well, as long as we're not talking about centralization, I'll be perfectly fine. So here's your one caveat to that question, right? Don't you dare ask us about centralization, because me and the boys have some very, very, very strong feelings about it. It's
bastardized anyways in a lot of forms. So we'd probably have to agree on the definition of centralization.
All right. That seems fair. You're right. Definitions matter. Yeah. I know what my definition is. So let's see. As we start to, wrap up here, what are you most excited about for the horizon for our industry when it comes to maintenance? I mean, you're in it. You're one of the few people who I've talked to who's looking at it from very different angles. And where are we going?
I am wholly convinced, and it's not even a doubt, because there's so much money in this. If you can move renewals, and I can prove it, the next chain of events are obvious to me. And so we've got the data to prove it. We're launching it in this report, and we've got way more. We're going to just keep feeding it out. We build a lot of things. We call it perfect decision in our product. We can actually predict lease churn risks and who you should potentially give the job to based on how they perform. There's some really cool things. But The thing that is going to happen over the coming years is really the focus and emphasis on maintenance. Now, it's actually two parts. Right now, we're in a macro and a downtrend economy. We all know this, right? And so right now, it's all going to be about hanging on to lease renewals, and it's going to be minimizing costs through that. The moment that the market improves, which it inevitably will, it will all be around, I still want to operate excellently, but I still understand how NOI can impact. And I want to be strategic about how altering my renewal rate against rent prices. There's going to be a big thing, but maintenance is probably going to be one of the heaviest invested, and what I would say is professionalized arms. And not that it's not professionalized by any means, but I think the whole thing, what I mean by that is it is going to be an expectation when people and operators are doing underwriting. I would not be surprised in the next year, the questions about how maintenance is performing are going to matter. And if you're doing that, then it's going to be the investment in the team members, the investment in resources, the investment in technology, and everybody's going to move that direction. It will probably be one of the largest shifts in property management that we're going to see over the next 5 years. And the cool thing is, I'm going to say the last thing, it is going to create so much upside in real estate value by doing so.
Listen, as a maintenance professional who's been doing this 16 years now, it is refreshing to hear that the focus is coming our way. And I know that there's plenty of my peers and friends that have felt this way for a really long time. But yeah, I'm personally have started to see the shift. I've personally heard more about it and seen some of those things changes actually coming to fruition. People bringing maintenance leaders into the room earlier when we're creating deals and we're putting deals together, and when we're designing rehabs or new construction, it's like, oh, well, this is going to be, hey, what are we going to be doing in 5 years? You know, I've actually had people being like, we're building this brand new building, but what's it going to look like in 5 years? And I'm like, oh, my stars and garters, nobody's ever asked me that. Like, we want to design it so it lasts a long time, not so we can get it off the ground, which I think is a really, really nice added change.
100%.
So I want to encourage and have you, I want to encourage people to find out a little bit more about Property Meld. They can go to propertymeld.com as your website. That'll be available in the show notes that you can click on, and we'll put it in the comments as well. You guys also do a really cool maintenance minute newsletter, which I've read a few of them, and it's some pretty cool content in there for maintenance professionals and anybody that wants to have, you know, a little bit more knowledge about the maintenance in the industry. And I'll let you plug the MX Summit. You can go to the MXSummit for more information, to buy tickets and book a room. But is there anything else you want to say on the summit?
Chris, I'm glad you brought up the maintenance minute. I'll tell you one thing, just so viewers are, because everybody gets a million newsletters, and if your inbox looks like mine, I'm picky now. We release benchmarking reports on maintenance operations every month. So how things are performing, are things getting slower or faster in the market? And they change throughout the year. And if you want to know how prices are changing, we tell you in there. And then we also share some of the abnormalities we see. How is AI intake and triage impacting certain response times and different things like that? And so back to the whole thing, how do we get bean counters to care? It brings a lot of things and connects the numbers to operations and what we're seeing out there just because of our vast data sets. So that's one. Certainly getting that is once a month that you can get that data, and it is probably the most liked thing that we produce. When it comes to MX Summit, I'm obviously a fan. There's two things that we probably get asked a lot. Should my technician come? Should my, regional coordinator? Should my executive come? Like, who should come to this thing? It's both. And I will tell you exactly why it's both. For like the technician and different things like that, we do have tactical courses and training and different things that we have breakout rooms. We call them melding pots, where we put together some other people and we talk about some of the problems that we're solving and some of the different things we're seeing. But a lot of the times we see a lot of executives come because it's like, where's the industry going to come from cost management? We're talking about resident retention, SLAs, how those things can impact the P&L. So there's some higher level things around maintenance strategies and how they're going to impact some of these things. So it really has a breadth of all. And that's what we've tended to see from teams. We have CFOs coming with their regional leaders, with technicians, and we've had teams bring 10 people all the way through. So there is a little something for everyone there, and it is designed that way. And then the second thing was we have incredible entertainment. So one of the things, excuse me, I got something in my throat here, but one of the things that we're kind of doing, I grew up in Wyoming, so it feels a little gimmicky, but people are like thrilled at this. We're having a real rodeo. And I think it's technically called a showdeo, but it's real prize money for these athletes to perform and do that in front of all the participations of the MX Summit. I think there's bull riding and some of these other things they're doing. And so people who aren't familiar and never been to one, we have one just for you, which is incredible. We also have Andy Probst, who's an amazing executive that is actually DJing that. The dude is a stud. He's awesome. Anyways, we got putt-putt golf tournament, late night rave, and some other things happening there. That'll be a lot of fun for a lot of people. So it's inclusive of food. It's inclusive of entertainment. So it's really, we got a lot of it covered. So you can just think about maintenance.
Awesome. Well, Ray, I am looking forward to being there, seeing you in person. Hopefully, I'll get to meet some of our listeners, both from the Multifamily Media Network and listeners of the Turnover and Beyond the Work. But I can tell you, I'm super excited. The guys at the Turnover are super excited. We can't wait to be part of this amazing event that really is focusing on maintenance. And I thank you for your support. I know it's your business, but you can't do your business without us. So, I appreciate it. It goes both ways.
100%.
So, thank you 100%. For that.
Likewise.
Ray Hespen, Property Meld, thank you so much for joining me today on Beyond the Work. It was a real honor and pleasure to have you here. And, to my listeners, please, check out Property Meld and the MX Summit. Like, subscribe, share this, and we'll see you next time on as we go Beyond the Work.
Chris.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. No matter how long you've been in our industry or what position you have at your company or your community, everyone has a maintenance story to tell. Go to www.multifamilymedianetwork.com and leave me a voice message or share your information and we can tell your tale together on a future episode. Please check out our sponsors and like, subscribe, and follow to this podcast or video and join the Multifamily Media News Network newsletter for upcoming shows and blogs from me and the other great hosts on our network. Our stories all connect us. See you for the next chapter.